There was this plan for Presidents Putin, Zelenskyy, and possibly even President Trump to meet in Turkey. However, the only one who actually made the trip was President Zelenskyy of Ukraine. President Putin, who was the one who suggested these talks occur, didn't show up.
Welcome to Reporter's Notebook, where we talk to the Washington Examiner's top journalists about the stories breaking on their beats. I'm Jim Antle, and I'm joined today by defense reporter Mike Brest. Mike, President Trump has had his first big overseas trip of his second term, talking to the Arab states. What are some of the takeaways?
This really was the perfect encapsulation of the president's Art of the Deal mantra. He's gone to multiple Arab countries, and each time he's announced these big, lavish economic and defense deals that he says are supposed to provide security and prosperity for years to come. Some of the notable things that we've seen are his willingness to engage with officials in the Middle East who U.S. officials hadn't necessarily been eager to engage with in the past. That being said, one other notable, which sort of was one of the underpinnings of the whole trip, he didn't go to Israel, and he's not expected to go to Israel before the end of the trip. And it sort of highlighted where the president stands and his sort of overarching message of this being a chance for him to make foreign deals. He already has a strong relationship with Prime Minister Netanyahu in Israel, and so this was really him working the room in the Middle East to get some of the Arab states on board with his vision of peace through strength.
It does, however, seem like there is some daylight increasingly between President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu, perhaps even over Gaza, but certainly over things like talks with Iran. What is the status of all that?
It's a fascinating display where we expected President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu to be almost in lockstep with the president's Middle East foreign policy. And that hasn't quite been the case, even though they do overlap and have a lot in agreement. President Trump sent these 2,000-pound bombs that the previous administration had put on hold for Israel. At the same time, we've seen him talk about emptying Gaza. We've seen the Arab states come out very heavily, very significantly against that idea, accusing or alleging that would be ethnic cleansing. But at the same time, we've seen a lot of President Trump, a lot of the expectations that people had for President Trump and his relationship with Netanyahu come to fruition. But at the same time, as you mentioned, some of the areas of daylight include President Trump's pursuit of a new Iran nuclear deal, as well as the U.S. ceasefire with the Houthis in Yemen. The U.S. had gone on a 7-week-long bombardment campaign against the Houthis in Yemen, costing millions of dollars. And then they finally and pretty abruptly announced a ceasefire agreement between the U.S. and the Houthis. At the same time, that deal did not include Israel. And so in the time since the ceasefire, we've continued to see the Houthis attack Israel and vice versa. And so there was a lot of eyebrows raised in Washington as well as in Tel Aviv as the fact that the Israelis weren't involved in these negotiations between the U.S. and the Houthis and were not included in the ceasefire.
So Trump appears to have made some inroads with the Arab states. The Ukraine-Russia peace talks, though, seem to be a different story. What's going on there?
So earlier today, there was this plan for Presidents Putin, Zelenskyy, and possibly even President Trump to meet in Turkey. However, the only one who actually made the trip was President Zelenskyy of Ukraine. President Putin, who was the one who suggested these talks occur, didn't show up. The Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, who's been in the position for a really long time now and is very much a player in these negotiations, didn't show up either. They sent even lower-level Russian officials. The U.S. had officials there for the meeting, and President Zelenskyy was there as the only senior head of state to engage in these conversations. And he said very clearly that he supports this U.S. proposal for a 30-day ceasefire and believes it should be implemented immediately. That's because his people are dying. He is the leader of the country that's been invaded. The U.S. is still struggling with how to convince Russian President Vladimir Putin to come to the table and agree to this deal. And so we've heard some indications that the administration could consider putting additional sanctions on Russia, but we've yet to see exactly what that would look like.
Thank you, Mike. You can read Mike and the rest of our national security team's coverage at washingtonexaminer.com.